The forest pressed in on all sides as Ben navigated the winding road, the thick canopy of trees blocking out the last rays of the setting sun. His GPS had lost signal miles ago, leaving him to rely on the faded ancient map he found in the glove compartment. It was supposed to be a shortcut, a quicker way to reach his friend's weekend retreat. Instead, it led him deeper into the unknown.
As dusk settled, the road narrowed further until it became little more than a dirt track. Just as Ben was about to turn back, the trees parted, revealing a massive dark structure looming in the distance. An old hotel, its outline barely visible against the twilight sky. The name was still legible on the cracked sign, the Hollow Pines Inn. Curiosity got the better of him. The place looked deserted, but it was far too large and grand to be completely abandoned. Maybe he could find someone inside who could give him directions, or, at the very least, a place to stay for the night. The forest had already swallowed the road he came from, and the thought of navigating back in the dark was less appealing than spending a night in a possibly creepy old inn. He parked in what had once been a grand circular driveway, now overrun with weeds. The front doors were unlocked, creaking open to reveal a once luxurious lobby, now coated in dust and neglect. The chandeliers overhead were draped in cobwebs, their crystals dulled by years of disuse. A massive staircase curved upward, splitting into two wings at the top. Everything about the place was both magnificent and eerie, as if time had stopped and left it suspended in decay. Ben approached the reception desk, where an old ledger lay open. The pages were brittle and yellowed with age. The last entry was dated over 50 years ago, the names and dates scrawled in elegant cursive. As Ben ran his fingers over the names, the floorboards above creaked loudly, followed by the soft patter of footsteps. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't alone. "Hello," he called, his voice echoing off the high ceiling. The footsteps stopped abruptly. Silence answered him, but there was something in the air now, a presence he hadn't felt before. It was as if the hotel had awakened to his arrival. He hesitated, then decided to investigate. Climbing the grand staircase, Ben noticed the walls were lined with portraits, stern faces that seemed to watch his every move. Their eyes, cold and judgmental, followed him down the corridor. He reached the second floor, where the air felt colder, denser. The hallway stretched on, its doors closed, their brass numbers tarnished. One door at the far end stood slightly ajar, flickering candlelight spilling from within. Ben approached cautiously, the floor creaking beneath his weight. Pushing the door open, he found a room that looked as if it had been recently occupied. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting long shadows on the walls. A single chair was pulled up to the window, facing out into the darkened forest. On the small table beside it, a steaming cup of tea sat, untouched. Ben's pulse quickened. There was no way anyone could have just been here. He would have seen them leaving. His hand reached out to touch the teacup, still warm. A sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the fire and plunging the space into darkness. Panic surged in Ben's chest. He turned to leave, but the door slammed shut on its own. He was trapped. The shadows began to move, coalescing into figures that were only half formed, their outlines wavering like smoke. Faces emerged from the darkness, familiar faces. Ben recognized them from the portraits lining the hallway. They whispered, their voices intertwining in a chorus of despair and anger. "The Hollow Pines Inn claims all who enter." The room began to spin, the walls closing in as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Ben stumbled back, his hand fumbling for the door handle, but it was icy to the touch, freezing his skin on contact. "You shouldn't have come here," one voice hissed, closer now, directly in his ear. The temperature dropped further, his breath visible in the cold air. The shadows pressed in on him, the figures' features becoming more defined, their expressions twisted in anguish. And then suddenly, everything stopped. The door creaked open, revealing the empty hallway beyond. The warmth of the inn returned, as if nothing had happened. Shaking, Ben bolted from the room, down the stairs and out into the night. He didn't stop until he reached his car, but as he fumbled with his keys, he noticed something horrifying. His reflection in the car's window was wrong. The face staring back at him wasn't his own. It was a face from one of the portraits, its eyes wide with terror. Ben screamed and jumped into the car, speeding away from the Hollow Pines Inn, his mind reeling. He glanced in the rearview mirror, hoping to see his own face again. Instead, He saw the shadowy figure of a man seated in the back seat, his eyes hollow, his mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. The last thing Ben heard as the car swerved off the road was the echo of that voice, whispering in his ear. The Hollow Pines Inn claims all who enter,